I'm sure that Muhammad, like his head sweating of happiness. He doesn't have hair. اوكي السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. يا هلا مرحبا مرحبا حياكم الله. اهلا وسهلا ومرحبا مليون. حياكم الله. ارحبوا ارحبوا ارحبوا. And a special greeting to everyone. Guantanamo greetings. And I'm sure Muhammad is going to cry because he misses this song. حبا حبا باللي جاء باللي جاء يا مرحبا باللي جاء باللي جاء. حبا حبا باللي جاء باللي جاء يا مرحبا باللي جاء باللي جاء. Basically, this was our song at Guantanamo when we welcoming each other. Someone came to arrive new at Guantanamo, came in from interrogation, coming from anywhere to the block. So you can see around 100 to 150 people sing at the same time. It's like a thunder. حبا حبا باللي جاء باللي. I am sure Muhammad remember that. I trigger some memories, Muhammad, right? Thank you all.
How do we follow you, Mansoor? So I'd like to say thank you to everybody for coming here. I'd obviously like to say thank you to Amnesty for hosting the event tonight. And it's Eid, so that's a big deal. Eid Mubarak to Mohamedou and to Mansoor and to any other Muslims here in the audience tonight. And I wanted to say really how pleased I am to be doing this event with my brother Mansoor and with my brother Mohamedou. And I don't mean that in a religious sense. I mean, these are my brothers in humanity. And you are all brothers and sisters in humanity. We are all brothers and sisters in humanity. We're in the Human Rights Center of Amnesty International's headquarters. And this is about human rights. And the human rights, we are all equal, and we are all meant to be protected from the terrible things that have been happening at Guantanamo and that are still happening at Guantanamo. And tonight we're going to hear from Mohamedou and from Mansoor about how they managed to write in this dreadful place. But I just wanted at the beginning just to talk about human rights a bit, to talk about the fact that what we know as our human rights and what we are supposed to be entitled to be protected from, arbitrary imprisonment, the use of torture, the use of abuse and other forms of ill treatment, really came together after the Second World War in response to the horrors of the Second World War. The UN came up with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, which is such a significant foundational document for rights that the whole world should aspire to. And was followed by, by this being adopted by the countries of Europe in the European Convention on Human Rights, which the government of this country would like to remove us from, which tells you why they shouldn't be trusted. And other developments that took much longer to achieve. Now, those prohibitions on torture and other forms of abuse were there from the beginning, but the very specific UN Convention against Torture didn't exist until 1987. And I think you can tell from that it was a hugely uphill struggle to get countries to focus and honestly say with a straight face, we're not going to torture. And of course, it hasn't stopped. But we're all here, I think, because we respect these fundamental rights. And unfortunately, when Guantanamo was established, it was established as a place where the people like Mansoor and Mohamedou who ended up there were held fundamentally without any rights whatsoever as human beings. It's really important to remember that that was the initial setup at Guantanamo. And it took nearly 2.5 years for lawyers fighting through the US courts to get any recognition that they had rights at all. Habeas corpus rights, the rights to ask an impartial judge why they were being held. Those rights were subsequently taken away, were not given back to them in 2008, and then only lasted for a couple of years before politically motivated appeals court judges took them away again. For most of Guantanamo's existence, the law has had no practical effect. And it also took nearly 4.5 years after Guantanamo was established and the whole black site program as well, before the Supreme Court reminded the United States government that the borderline protections of Article 3 of the Geneva Conventions, which prohibit ill treatment, apply to everyone in US custody. And they had pretended for 4.5 years that that wasn't the truth either. Now, I'd like to say that things have massively improved. And what I am able to say is that there were certainly improvements in the living conditions of people at Guantanamo after President Obama took office in 2009. But what I unfortunately need to tell you all is that in February this year, for the very first time, a UN rapporteur visited Guantanamo. Now, why did it take 21 years? Well, it took 21 years because UN rapporteurs had wanted persistently to visit Guantanamo, but were not given assurances that they would be able to meet with prisoners in an unsupervised manner. And that is a requirement of prison visits for rapporteurs. So the Biden administration has finally allowed that. This is the first US administration that has allowed it. And the report came out on Monday, which was UN Torture Day. And although the rapporteur acknowledges that conditions have improved in so many ways, the underlying dehumanization and violence at Guantanamo, the fundamental lawlessness of the prison is still there. And her conclusion is that this is a place where the entire function of the place is still abusing the men who are held there, and that the abuse and ill treatment that is systemic at Guantanamo may rise to the level of torture. This is a very, very strong condemnation of the prison's continued existence. And I really, really do hope that the Biden administration is paying attention, because there's no one else who has responsibility for this prison or has the ability to close it. It's a devastating opinion, and I hope you get the chance to read it. So hopefully, having brought you up to date with some of the issues around Guantanamo, I would like to now talk to Mohamedou and Mansoor about how they came to write the extraordinary books that they wrote. And they're for sale outside if you haven't got them. Mohamedou's book, Guantanamo Diary, was published in 2015 when he was still held at Guantanamo. And Mansoor's book, Don't Forget Us Here, was published 2 years ago, Mansoor, yeah? And so, Mohamedou, would you like to talk from whatever perspective you want about the creation of your book in Guantanamo?
First, I would like to thank you so much because you are one of my real hero, because Andy, since day one, started to uncover and expose the human rights violation in Guantanamo Bay. And I remember after 9 years, when they allowed us to watch selected programs, I saw him. I didn't know him, but I just fell in love with him. You know, and he didn't know me, and he just knew me as a number. And he was mostly naming the British citizen. And to be honest, I felt a little bit jealous because no one knew me. No one knows really my name, who I was. And no one really could go outside and ask expressly for my release. And the other hero here is my co-panelist, Sarah. Sarah contacted me about, I think, 3 years back.
Yeah, about 3 or 4 years ago, I think.
3 or 4 years.
We had you at an Amnesty.
Yes.
It was when, Lewis Amnesty International have been sort of working on Guantanamo since we started actually about 12 years ago. Prior to that, I was involved with the Brighton group, and we've sort of been campaigning on all of the detainees sort of continuously, really. And I've worked with Andy like that but all the time you've been involved as well. But yeah, I think that was the first time that we had that meeting, didn't we, online? And you came, and we had an online Zoom meeting, and then from that, you were invited to take part in the conference at Brighton University, which we organised. And good to see one of my students here today, taking up the fight. Well done, Melissa. And I really, with that conference, to which I invited Mohamedou and other people, really wanted to sort of engage the students in my university in particular, and other students with the campaign to close Guantanamo. But yes, it's been an absolute pleasure.
And she was really very optimistic, because she wanted to invite me, but I did not have a passport. I was not allowed to leave Mauritania. I can hear myself. Oh, I sound so good. So, and she wanted to invite me to the UK, except I did not have a passport. And I just like didn't want to be impolite with her. I said, yes, let's go with the process, because I want her to feel good about, her work. And I knew, because turns out American asked Mauritania never, ever to allow me to leave the country until I die. But with work like Andy's, like Sarah's, like Bernie, and like many beautiful people in this beautiful country and from around the world, I got my passport back. And it took me maybe 1 year of fighting until I also get the visa to the UK. And this is my first time in the, visiting the belly of the beast, Amnesty International. Because I always called, but I never came really to the premise of Amnesty. Anyone from Amnesty here? I report you to the Homeland Security. So, and because Amnesty, did you know that Amnesty was directly involved in the publication of the French version of my book? Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
So they were involved. They helped me publish the French version, Amnesty International. And I also know that Amnesty International home is here. It started here in the UK, in London. And now it's everywhere, thank God. And I'm very humbled and I'm very thankful for being here. And I think I also represent Mansoor if I say we are really very grateful for the beautiful work you guys are doing for those still behind bar who cannot speak for themselves. And the main hero really in here is a person I consider my son, Cameron. Where are you? Yeah, stand up. So the only wrong thing about him that he supports Arsenal. So, but aside from that, he is the one actually who invited me, and he's only 15 years old. So that gives you the beauty of this country and the beauty of those people. And his mother, Khandan, is the one who trusts us. And his father, whom I don't like a lot, Scott, is there too. So his father is American. His mother is Iranian, for God's sake. Go figure. At first, I thought it was a joke. Turns out it was a joke. And how I wrote the book, I talk a lot. Start with Mansoor, and then I can.
Mansoor, you've been waiting more patiently. Would you
Okay.
to talk to the audience here about some aspect of your writing and how that happened, and what the experience was of writing a book in prison.
I'd like Muhammad to start because he wrote before me. I start early. I came only late.
Well, the new kid on the block now, though, Mansoor.
Okay.
Mohamedou is old news.
Okay, so
His
let's
book
start.
ages ago.
Yeah, I second what Muhammad said about first you, Andy. We heard there's like a musician guy in England who is fighting for you guys. Like, who is this guy? You know, I didn't have a lawyer until 2009, but before that, some of the brothers got some news. And we started receiving news about منظمة العفو الدولية. It was in Arabic. Like, what is منظمة العفو الدولية? Amnesty International. We had, personally, honestly, I had no idea what even Amnesty means. So we started reading. I'm like, always we get reports for Amnesty International about Guantanamo. Because from 2002 until 2004, we were in dark until the first lawyer arrived. Then little by little, it was a process getting news, getting hear about the people, and that gave us hope, honestly, that people writing about us. And we connected to you, Andy, to Amnesty International through writing. You know, before we start talk about writing, I would like to say what Cameron did today, because he wrote to Muhammad through writing, right? And I am very happy that happened, because we can see the young generation started, you know, taking us involving. And I always say that we should involve the young generations, because all we do is about them. I would like to thank Khamdan and Scott. I just learned now they are like one American, one Iranian. So I love you both more, guys. You know, the importance of writing in human history, you know, writing is a lifeline. It preserves us as humans, preserve our humanity, educate us. And with every word we write, we shape the narrative of our collective story, empowering individuals, challenging injustice, and paving the way for brighter and more enlightened future. You know, I can keep just going about writing, but what I can tell you, in Guantanamo, one of the detainees, he didn't know how to read or write, so we taught him until he was able to read and write. I'm like, how do you feel? He said, wallahi, the pain of illiteracy is worse than ever. It's the real slavery. And, you know, like seeing him holding a book in his hand, expressing himself, writing and reading. He said, every time I see guys reading, I cry inside me. So writing at Guantanamo was a privilege, basically. What she's writing actually is just part of you are, part of your identity, part of your, it's like in your DNA. You should be able to read and write, not just express yourself in the best way you could. The first word in our Holy Quran is read. Read. And it goes on, I think Muhammad knows that, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, by the one who taught by the pen. So this is the very verse of the very first in the Quran. Important of reading and writing is essential. It is as life, it's life itself. I'm going to jump to Guantanamo, guys. Now let us go to the Camp Delta, Camp 5, 6. So at the early days, we weren't allowed to write. We weren't allowed to have pen or paper or anything. So only in times when the ICRC came, sometimes the guard would keep eyes on us when we write. We had 20 minutes, and there's no guarantee our writing would even make it. It goes to the interrogators immediately. When we figure out the interrogator is going to get the letter, sometimes we wrote to them, you know. It was level 1 where the paping get like a pen of paper, 2 hours a day. Then after that thing gets, with the years, thing gets changed. And still, when you get punished, you will get deprived of your pen and paper. I start writing essay in school, and I was good at it. And also I get a lot of support from my teachers, my older sister, my brothers, and so on. So I was good writing. at Guantanamo, I used to write for my brothers letters. You know, they have the words, and the emotion. They have the emotions, but they didn't have the word for it. So I would write to their wives, families, mothers, daughters, and so on. When it comes to the book processing, I just remember in Camp X-ray, there was one day, Muhammad, there was like, they announced a state of emergency in the camp. One of the brothers, they used to give us MRE. With it, they give us like a powder tea, and the bag of the powder tea, it made of not plastic, it made of محمد ايش معنى قصدير؟ قصدير. Anyway,
Wait, I need to think about it.
Anyway, so the brother used the tea powder and put it inside in the bag and roll it like a pen, like this. He put the powder inside and make it like a pen, and would dip it in the water and start writing on the toilet paper. And he just wrote a poem. That night when they found that paper, they brought FCE teams, the dog, the cameras, interrogators, interpreters. It was a state of emergency in Camp X-ray. They said we had there was like a security breach, and they took us all of the cages, they searched us, they took our pens, they took us interrogation. Who gave you the pen of the paper? How do you manage to write? And what's your plan of escaping? So this is one of our experience with like unauthorized writing at Guantanamo. And the interrogation lasted that there was a plan to escape from Guantanamo. When I moved to the communal living in 2010, after I ended my hunger strike, I found myself getting older. I didn't feel it honestly, like I still feel I'm 19, 20, but I felt I wasn't happy with myself where I was. I felt I was empty from within. My behavior, cursing a lot, like in different languages, become like aggressive with the guards because we keep fighting, because we kept reacting to whatever they threw at us. When I was caught in the situation. I'm not a bad guy. I wasn't a bad guy, but when you being in the front and you keep reacting, fighting, it become a part of your life. It become part of you. So I was scared and afraid of myself because I thought I'm going to be that person for the rest of my life. Literally, I was like, no. So I get a pen, paper. I took a book Around the World in 80 Days. So I start learning how to read and write in English. And my brothers at Guantanamo and the guards would say, hey, Mansoor, when are you going to finish the book? The man took like around 80 days. 6 months. I said, when I find my sweetheart, I can finish. So I start writing, learning English, and writing in Arabic, translating into English. I used to write to my lawyer stories and so on. I managed to write my first book draft until 2013. I wrote in Arabic and translated it into English. Oh, in 2013, it was confiscated. The FBI came to me. He said, look, we need to talk to you about some information in your draft. I said, what draft? Can you give it back? They said, no. I said, okay, figure it out. You don't need me. They said, yeah, you are smart, you are smarter. I said, then figure it out. You're smarter. So they confiscated my draft, but I didn't give up. In 2015, when I got my Aunt Bat Jacob, my new lawyer, but because my previous lawyer died in 2013, it's one of the hardest moments at Guantanamo. I said, like, I need to get my book out. So I start writing my book again as I name it Moments from Guantanamo. I write it as legal letters to my lawyer. I'll go to the classroom, shackled, chained, and like keep writing, collect them, and send them at legal mail. This is the way my book draft got out. My lawyer collected those letters, and she managed to send the book to Guantanamo by the end of Obama term. I was lucky they clear it. They took, I think, around 70 pages or something. And after I published my first article in the New York Times, I got contacted by one of my partner, brother, and friend Antonio, and I tortured him for a few years to get to work on the book, to read it. It was written in. Can I show you? Can you see it? It is in. I still have a copy. It's like it was hand cursive. I learned English translating. I start writing cursive. I get the full draft. Then we start working on it again, prepare it, and did some work. And then I figured out like, well, the writing world is kind, so alhamdulillah. But now I still writing. So writing for me, it was the therapy at Guantanamo. It's not just writing, I was also writing for my brothers. I was so happy when some community, please, I need to write. I need to write a letter to my wife. I have been here. What like it's like, how do you feel? Like he said, I feel that way. I'm like, I said, okay. So I put myself as my husband and my wife waiting there, and we spend like sometimes, because when I write, I just disconnect myself from everyone, everything, and I live that personality, which is sometime I can like when I get hard to get out. When I get out, I need some time to recover. So I really put my heart in my writing. I'm praising myself, Muhammad. I want to defeat you, brother. So please. So I would write to the brother like, here's the letter, like, oh, it's amazing. They want to what I want to say. So alhamdulillah, and every time I write, my writing getting improved. So I can express myself in English better than Arabic, I can say. Last night I had an interview with Al Jazeera in Arabic. I couldn't express myself because most of my writing, interviews, and work in English. So it became almost like I am good at expressing myself in English, even with you guys. I'm sure you're already in love with me, right? Okay, I will let the stage to Brother Muhammad, and I will get back to you.
Thank you, Mansoor. Mohammed, how are you going to follow that?
I just want to point out that Mansoor, he taught himself everything, just like all the other detainees who came to Guantanamo Bay and who didn't speak any English. And I just want to add to what he said, that my experience was not very far away. And I like the saying from Hemingway, who said something like, there is not much to writing. Just stare at the typewriter and let your brain bleed out, something like that. You are better than me. What did he say?
I don't know that. I
Yeah.
don't know that.
I don't know either.
Yeah, something like that. So, and German wisdom suggests that Papier ist geduldig. Paper is patient. So you can say anything to a paper. There is very known American writer who one day his son came to him and said, I want to be a writer like you, Dad. He said, son, before you start writing, you better know what you're gonna write. So if you have a story, you first need to have a story. That story need to be very painful. So, and in order to get that story on paper, it has really to hurt you inside a lot. I think that what happens to Mansoor, or certainly what happened to me, and I'm not a writer, so I'm trained microelectronics engineer, but it was so much pain because of the narrative that I hear every day, every single day when I came. I used to be pulled to interrogation, and they used to tell me that I'm an evil person. And I start really to believe I'm an evil person, And then I was with Mansoor on
Camp 2.
Lima Block. That's the only time I was with you, Lima Block. When you were in the
Yeah, I met like the first time I met Mohamedou Slahi. He has a beautiful guys. He had beautiful voice. Let him sing, guys. So I want to see that person. I had like views, very beautiful voice, and I came to the rec. I said, skinny guy. He's like unstable. Like I was going with he was under a sleep deprivation, and he was so skinny, pale, and he was like so polite. He was that handsome. He has like a lot of hair in his head, and like his voice, he was very small. So I said like, "How are you, brother? Alhamdulillah." He's like, "Be patient. Everything will be fine." They were kicking his ass in the interrogation room, and he can like, "Everything will be fine. It's okay," because I was younger than him, so he wanted to calm me down, but he didn't know I want the big trouble. I was like, "I'll try to calm down." Okay, thank you, Jazakallah khair, brother. So I remember him, then I heard that the way he was treated and isolated, it was painful, what they did to him, honestly. When he was isolated, we were worried about him if he is going to be driven mad or get crazy. Sorry, Muhammad, to interrupt.
No, it's okay. So, and then they moved me to a Kilo Block. And then after that, I was moved to Mike Block. So Mike Block then was reserved to bad guys. And I know it was a little bit intimidating, but it was also a little bit, I felt a little bit a boost of self-esteem, because in America, bad guys are really good people. So, and I was a little bit confused. So, am I a good guy? And this is a circular argument in the US. You are a bad guy, you are good. And if you are a good guy, you are really a bad guy. So, and I wasn't allowed access to pen or paper. And thou shalt not steal. We do have that too. But there is nothing in the Quran that says thou shalt not borrow. So I opted for the second honest thing, which is I used to, so there are other detainees in the block who were allowed to write letters. I was not allowed to write letters. So they would slip their pen through the cage, and then I would they give me paper, and then I would just write very quickly. I did not speak enough English to write in English, so I wrote in Arabic, German, and in French, all in one place. It was, and then I also wrote the English sentences I learned from other detainees, because we had a British detainee who was with me on the block, and he used to teach me a little bit, and I was confused because what he taught me was not the way I heard it from the guards. So there were like two versions of English that I couldn't reconcile. But I was like trying to absorb everything. And then one day, just like they did to Mansoor, they came to me and they confiscated everything. And I felt deeply violated in my privacy, in my life, that my story was taken away from me, because that's the only thing I owned. And then I stopped. And then I was taken to complete isolation where I couldn't steal. And I stopped everything until 3 years later when I met my lawyers. And, when I was young, I used to watch Married with Children. Anyone know this show? So you are really old. I mean, some of the younger people, Married with Children. And I used to watch it in German, Schrecklich nette Familie. Anyone watch it? Yeah. You guys, you are too young, but come on, Roland. Richard, you watched it. So, and then I watch like occasionally Law and Order. So, and I had this I had this idea about Americans that are really very funny and that they really like to follow the law. Turns out they're really funny. That's it. So, and so, and when they told me my lawyer Nancy was coming, I was so happy because now I could share with her my story. And I took a pen. Then I was allowed to have a pen and paper. So, and I started to write. And then I don't know, in a couple of days, I wrote 163, I think, 163 pages very quickly. And then I gave to her, and I'm ashamed to say this. I thought that she would go to the court and I would be acquitted and I would get $1 million, just like in Law and Order. To this day, I'm still waiting on $1 million.
Me too.
We,
Can share.
yeah, in Mauritania, we have a joke. We have a lot of blasphemous joke in Mauritania. So this Bedouin, he fell sick. And he started praying. He said, "Oh Allah, please, I can't breathe. Please let me breathe. Let me breathe." And then his prayer wasn't answered. And then he knew he was going to die. He said, "Oh Allah, please give me paradise." His brother looked at him and said, "Allah wouldn't give you even oxygen that is for free. You think he's going to give you paradise that is so special?" And I felt like that. So I had to cancel the $1 million dream. And Nancy told me one thing. She told me, keep writing. And then I went back, and I'm going back to this: son, before you start writing, you need to know what you're going to write. And I knew what I was going to write. And in 2.5 months, I wrote 465 pages. Is that my manuscript? 465? Yes. And I sent it in very small chunk of letters. And I used 2 sides because I didn't have enough paper. And my writing was very small. And she looked at me one time and said, "Why do you use both sides?" And I was laughing, said, "What's funny about that?" I told her, "I don't have papers." So, and I used both. So the book, just like what happened to Mansoor, was detained and kept for almost 8 years. I was not allowed to share my story. My lawyer was not allowed to share my story. And after a lot of fight, as you know, that my book was published with this great deal of censored portion. They call it redaction. Yes, very, just like, I love this kind of,
Wording.
language.
Yes.
Yeah, like Patriot Act.
Like enhanced
This
interrogation
is a very
technique.
good word. I mean, if we name it, I'm going to screw your Human Rights Act. No one would vote for it. But Patriot Act, who is not patriot? I am patriot. I'm not, but most people are. So, and yeah, this was, in a nutshell. And I'm really very elated to be here because of you, people like you, of my brother, Larry Sims. My book was published, my story. And this is very shameful that me and Mansoor are allowed to speak with you guys, are allowed to appear. But there are detainees who did not write any books. Dali War was beaten to death in Bagram. He was a taxi driver. And you wrote about him. He was a taxi driver. He didn't have anything to do with anything. And the guards beat him to death in Guantanamo Bay. He was 26 years of age, I think. You know, in one of the secret prison, Gul Rahman died of hypothermia, the cold room I described in my book. They used to put us, and I know Mansoor knows this room because all the detainees, they put us in a very cold room. Yeah. And they want you to be there until you talk. You know what the problem was, at least with me? I couldn't talk because I couldn't move my tongue because I was so cold. You know, he died, he did not. He is not here talking to you guys. He didn't write a book. He didn't have like a movie, you know. And this is for those people, for their families, we need to do the kind of work you guys do and talk about them. Talk about people who are still in prison, in Guantanamo Bay and in other places, not only in Guantanamo Bay, in the Middle East, in Africa. Detainees who were released and put in prison.
Thank you, Mohamedou. Yeah, you just reminded me, really. I think we should open it up to Q&A soon, but you just reminded me that, you know, we do all need to remember the men who are still held in Guantanamo. There are 30 men still held at the prison. And of those 30 men, 16 have been approved for release, but have not yet been freed. And in most cases, that's because US law prevents them from being sent back to their home countries. So third countries must be found that will take them in, offer them a new home if they're lucky. Like Mansoor ended up, that's why Mansoor ended up in Serbia. It's not always been an easy ride for people released from Guantanamo. Mansoor was sent there nearly 7 years ago, but has only just got a passport. And, you know, I'm enraged that he isn't able to be with us today. I don't know whether it's incompetence that meant his visa didn't get processed, but we will get him here. And I hope that we'll see you again when we get Mansoor.
I'm coming, guys. Yeah. Coming.
But of these 30 men, I think Mohamedou made a good point. Maybe some of them have written something, but if they have, we haven't seen it yet. What I do know is that some of them are artists, that when they allowed art classes to take place at Guantanamo, which was after Obama became president, Mansoor writes about it amazingly in his book, how there was this outpouring of art amongst the prisoners in Camp 6 where they lived, and they covered every surface with artwork. That chapter on that is so amazing, Mansoor. But two of those guys are still held at Guantanamo. They've been approved for release. They're Yemenis. They can't go home. One is Moath, who makes huge sailing ships out of recycled materials. So extraordinarily beautiful sailing ships. And the other artist that I know of is Khaled, who is a very good friend of Mansoor's. And Khaled is a very creative artist. He uses materials very creatively. He makes kind of symbolic paintings. You know, that's very powerful work. But you know, what we need to do in this country and what we're trying to do with the UK Guantanamo network is that we've been working on trying to get MPs involved, and we want to get to a position where we at least officially send out a message to the United States and to the people of Britain that we want our government to take in one or two of these people who can't be sent back to their home countries. And believe me, I haven't become delusional. I know who the Home Secretary of this country is. But she won't be in that job forever.
She's a good guy.
And anyway, when it comes to these issues, it's important that we make our voices heard about what is right and what is wrong, even if we're up against things that look insurmountable. But of course, throughout the EU, there are also other countries that could help out. But it's really important because you know, when we're talking to Mohamedou and to Mansoor, both of you have been out of Guantanamo for quite a long time now. You lost so much of your lives in that place. But the men that are still held, it's just going on forever for them. So anything that we can do to help and to raise up these people would be really important. Is it a good time for
Andy, I just got a text from my friend in Guantanamo, and she's so frustrated. She went there for a visit, and she said, "Hey, I am so frustrated. I cannot even visit Camp X-ray. No photos, nothing, everything classified. Please talk about media limitations. I'm so frustrated. I want to tell the UN." So this is an American journalist who went to Guantanamo. She ended up being, I'm going to say a detainee, but a detainee of, it's like, I can't say she is free, but she is a detainee too. At Guantanamo is a military base. Now, as a journalist, she's not allowed to visit Camp X-ray. She's not allowed to take photos. She's allowed even to look at the mountains, like it's classified. You cannot take photo for the mountain. So she is writing now. Through writing, she's like, talk about media limitations. Like, okay, when I get back, I'm going to write about it. So not just as, I want to highlight this point, as detainees, we were a victim of Guantanamo. Guantanamo serves as a victim. American people are a victim. American justice system is a victim. Guard and some camp staff who work there are victims. Journalists are victims. And even lawyers. In order to have a lawyer at Guantanamo, you have to have a good lawyer. And I know Mohammed Nancy, she had to have a lawyer because they said she compromised some of the classified information. So welcome to Guantanamo. We were not the victims, but even you guys are the victims of Guantanamo idea, policy, Guantanamo, Guantanamo injustices that targeted our humanity.
Thank you, Mansoor. Do we have questions for Mohamedou or Mansoor?
General question. What is the
Oh.
Thank you. A general question. What is the official policy of the British government about Guantanamo, and how can we change it?
The official position of the British government was stated in response
I
to...
got a letter from we got from the Minister for the Americas saying the official view of the British government is that Guantanamo should be closed. That's basically what they said.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's what the British government is saying. Well, this is what we're trying to work on with by pushing for the all-party parliamentary group. So it's taken about a year, but we finally managed to get a Conservative on board, Sir Peter Bottomley, which meant that an all-party parliamentary group could be formed. We had the inaugural meeting in April. We had another meeting. As activists, we want things to move really fast, but it's difficult with politicians, as we saw from our meeting on Monday. I've taken on the role as the secretariat, so I do the secretarial things, and that was one of the reasons I decided to give a week of my time to do that, just to try and persuade the APPG to be set up at all. But you can spend your time focusing on trying to get a few people like Baroness Kennedy in the room. You're working really hard, and then on the day they've got another meeting and things like that. It's not easy, but the UK Guantanamo meeting, we meet regularly to discuss our steps forward on that.
The difficulty is that the good MPs are involved in all kinds of causes because there are so many injustices to fight against, and unfortunately, I suspect that Parliament's full of a lot of MPs who are not so good and they're not interested in these causes. So the people we have on board, a lot of them have a long history of being opposed to the existence of Guantanamo as well.
Yeah,
and it's really, I suppose it's really people, in whatever way, when people raise their voices, it's all in an attempt to make themselves heard to the United States government. And as American friends of mine and lawyers say, the United States does pay attention when it is criticized by its allies. It doesn't necessarily mean they'll do anything about it, but they will take on board that they are being criticized by people that are, you know, close to them.
It was really interesting that you brought up the artwork that has been produced and has come out of Guantanamo. You know, Clive Stafford Smith showed us some of the pieces on Monday, and they're fantastic. And there was even talk amongst Chris Law and Upsana Begum to host an art show in Parliament itself. There doesn't seem to be the same attention or the same attention paid to the letters that have come out of Guantanamo. Is that because they weren't sent, or they were too censored, or they were too personal? I mean, why did Mo and Mansoor, why do you think it was that the artwork seems to have come to the fore, whereas the letters aren't kind of in the public eye?
So, sorry, Andy, can you please, I didn't pay attention. I was distracted by my friend.
So the question was, what's happened, why we've heard about art from Guantanamo, but not the letters. And I'm immediately thinking
Okay.
that the letters would be personal to families. So, but
no, I will give you good news. Inshallah, in the next 3 months, we are working with Amazon on a project called audio book, Letters from Guantanamo.
there you go.
So soon we will tell the story about the writing at Guantanamo, about what means, how it was a way to survive, and some of the letters I wrote, because some of those letters were rejected and we managed again to get them out. I used to write to everyone, everything. I wrote to the Security Council, to the United Nations, to the White House, to the Congress, to the Pentagon, to the United Nations, to Gaddafi, to many people. I wrote even to the alien in space, asked them to come and get us from Guantanamo and be aware of our Guantanamo. Sounds funny, but I used to write those letters. So, you know, the art got a lot of attention. First of all, you know, always art, every word, letters were powerful, but art, I remember when we started negotiating with the administration in 2009 to have like art class, they said, you guys are terrorists. You don't know how to paint. So we asked some of the brothers, please, can you paint something? They painted, we give it to them, we get art class. It took time, process to get the art teacher, art materials. In 2017, however, when we exhibited the first arts from Guantanamo in New York at John Jay College, the government gone crazy, and they said they threatened to burn art from Guantanamo. And that time it was Trump in the White House. So Trump administration banned art from leaving Guantanamo. So we found ourselves in other arena and other battle to find now with the government to release art from Guantanamo. And I wrote a letter to the UDI, to also former Guantanamo detainees, wrote a letter to President Biden in 2021 to release art from Guantanamo. We kept, again, campaigning, and then the lawyers reached out to the Ahmed Jacob and other lawyers. They reached out to the UN, and when the UN get involved, they wrote a letter to U.S. government. So the response was, okay, the detainees were allowed. During Biden administration, actually in October last year, Biden administration partially left the ban. They said a practicable amount, the prisoners would take their art. So the first released prisoners who managed to take their artwork is Rabbani, Ahmed Rabbani, and they took 50 painting of his artwork. Those were when he was painting about his time at the CIA black site. So it was art from Guantanamo, we consider it like as a living one of us, a being, because it goes the same process. You know, when you paint, you don't know if they're going to allow you to keep your painting or not. So basically, each painting will take you months, weeks, some year, no exaggeration. When you finish with your painting, you leave it in the class. So when you finish, it will go to the it will go to the art officer, to the class officer. If he approve it, then we'll go to the GTF, Joint Task Force. And if they approve it, it will get stamped and back to the prisoner. Even each painting has to stamp. The stamp doesn't mean you can keep it forever. They have a right to confiscate it at any time. So after arts, it got the process has to go. We go before the PRP. We had like numbers. Each painting has a number. So the art go the same process we went. If the art get approved, go through a lawyer, get released, or through the ICRC and gets freedom. If not, it's going to be sentenced to death, and we don't know what happened to it. So in 2013, when they shut down Chem 6, many of the artwork were destroyed. My artwork and other brothers' artwork. So now we have exhibited a few exhibitions in the United States, and there was 2 months ago there was another exhibition in Pakistan, Rabbani's artwork. And Diva Driver, if she is here, my bigger sister, older sister, so she also trying to exhibit art from Guantanamo in London, and I hope it's going to happen soon. And this is one of the art here. Can you see it? It's like it says this is how they put us on the comebacks, right? So art from Guantanamo actually like a living being. Some of the arts managed to be free and speak to you guys. Some of the arts still in Guantanamo, still detained there. And they haven't told. I published an article in The Guardian about the last lifting ban on art from Guantanamo. Sorry, go ahead, Andy. You look at me.
Another question? Yeah.
Hi, this is a question more for Andy and Sarah. I've only really recently just got involved with this, but like, how do you kind of maintain like hope? Because I mean, you guys have been working on this for like what, 20 years? How do you sort of keep going and not kind of get despaired and want to give up and all of that?
I could go first. Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny to be, not funny, I'm here today, but I first became involved in Amnesty in my 20s, and I think it was when I was a teenager. I used to read about the concentration camps and things like that, and I got involved. And when I worked at the AI UK section actually 30 years ago. In my first job was in the urgent action team, and I worked in Rosebery Avenue, which was where this used to be based. And I went on to be a campaigner, and would be writing sort of campaigning material. And during that time, obviously I came into contact with people who had suffered torture, who had, suffered abuses. And I think one of the things that struck me, I think I had one conversation with someone who said, well, even if you're not successful, at what you do, at least the people that you're campaigning for could know that you're doing it. And so my thought with Guantanamo has always been that I don't want those people detained that are possibly being told, made to feel that they're wrong, they're bad, they're evil. I don't want the American government to be able to get away with that completely. I want them to know that outside there are people who are saying what's happening to them is wrong, however successful we are. And I feel really, really very strongly about that. I teach law, public law, talk about the rule of law. The hypocrisy of what's happening in America is just outrageous, and sends such a dreadful message to the world. It's something that I'm certainly not going to stop campaigning till Guantanamo is closed. There's plenty of other issues in the world that I could be involved in, but one only has so much capacity. So when we finish this evening, I've got a few suggestions about what you can do here to get more involved in campaigning. Andy.
So while these guys were in Guantanamo writing their stories, I was obviously outside Guantanamo deciding that I needed to write the story of all of them, which 779 men held by the US military. And I spent about a year researching and putting together my book, The Guantanamo Files, at which point I realized that I'd inherited this extremely large family of Muslim men and boys imprisoned at Guantanamo. And I haven't been able to move beyond that in terms of having understood that these are all individuals. And as I think all of us know who've studied Guantanamo, they're representative of humanity in a lot of ways. I'm sure there are some people in Guantanamo who are not particularly nice, but all the people that I've come across pretty much are fascinating individuals, horrendously wronged. So there's a very human angle, which is why I can't give up. I mean, I know the stories of the 30 men who are still held. And if I get the opportunity like I did tonight, I'll tell you about Moath, I'll tell you about Khaled. And I'm not going to stop doing that. But the other thing is that there's a principle at stake, and I'm a journalist, but I'm also an activist, and I think that a lot of things have gone wrong with the world because of an arbitrary division between journalism and activism, as though objectivity is everything. And I didn't stay objective after I discovered the truth about Guantanamo. I became very, very involved in it. And it's not just the story of the people, it's the principles that are at stake that are too important to move on from. As we all know, I'm sure, most people don't know about Guantanamo, people don't care about Guantanamo. And the really, really genuinely very, very alarming thing about that is that Guantanamo is a prison where people are still fundamentally held without any rights, as they were 21 years ago when it was set up. Guantanamo is still a place where, in defiance of the laws and treaties that are supposed to govern how we behave in countries that respect the rule of law, men are held indefinitely without charge or trial. That's simply unacceptable. But it is the foundation of Guantanamo, and it remains the story of Guantanamo to this day. And it must be brought to an end, and we must find a way of ensuring that that doesn't happen again. Because all of us in this room have to be reassured that the countries that we live in, we cannot be arbitrarily detained. If we're deprived of our liberty, then we're charged with a crime and we must be put on trial. Or it's wartime and we're deprived of our liberty and held unmolested according to the Geneva Conventions. Those are the only ways that we understand that we can be deprived of our liberty. And there is Guantanamo providing us with this horrendous example of a country that at every opportunity says how it respects the rule of law, and yet has been holding these men in absolute defiance of what it says it believes in. So that's why I keep going. I suspect that also there's something pig-headed and stubborn about me.
So thank you so much for doing this. I have like footnote and then a couple more things. One is the exhibit that was at John Jay in New York. I live in New York. The exhibit that was at John Jay, one of the, when Mansoor was showing the, picture before, it was amazing how many pictures, however they were curated, were of sunsets, sunrises, these beautiful, scenarios of just, and it was sort of, you couldn't quite contextualize that because we know that other art exists and that it wasn't there. So it was this very odd exhibit. So I just thought that was kind of a footnote. The second thing is, and it kind of goes to what Andy was saying, but I just want to underscore it a little bit more, and that is that it's one thing to know about Guantanamo. It's one thing to read it in the New York Times or to read it in other places. It's another thing to hear about it in a way that emotionally affects you. And I don't think either Mansoor or Mohamedou, even with film, that you understand how important these stories are. For the students, my students, your students, who weren't born when Guantanamo was opened, giving them a history book or, even a piece of journalism is not the same thing. And so just to recognize how important these books and whatever films are done are, it's really, we need to underscore it more. We need to get these books out. We need to let people know it. And I just want to say one other thing about this, which is that that book of letters that Amazon is doing, that's a really important thing. And the sooner the better. And just let us know, because, you know, we will make sure that everybody we can find reads it. And then there was a third thing, which I forget. So.
Karen, please, sorry, that's very loud. Karen, also tell the audience who you are.
I am, and Mansoor, it's nice to meet you because we've done a couple things together. I'm Karen Greenberg. I run the Center on National Security at Fordham Law, and I've been doing things to try to get Guantanamo emptied for a very long time, like 20 years. And I wrote a book on the beginning of it, and on the first 100 days, and I'm like waiting to write the last 100 days. It's like, I'm going to start. That's what I've decided.
Yeah, count me in.
Can I just reply to something about engaging the students, or were you waiting for an answer from one of the writers here? Did you know? Yeah, just to say, I mean, I teach Masters in International Human Rights at my university, and I actually set Watching the Mauritanian as their preparation. And you know, and Mohamedou was extremely kind, and he came and actually did a Zoom lesson in my class. And we've shown the Mauritanian at our university, the Law Society, you know, both last 2 years, and you know, the engagement of the students once they actually see and they see what's happening. And I think that is something that could be promoted again over, you know, law schools throughout the UK, around the world. And that's something that I think the UK and Guantanamo Network would be keen to try and work with. I know we've got, is Bhumika here today? I don't know if Bhumika's here from the LSC. She's part of the network as well. Because, you know, I've had friends of mine who've said, oh my God, you're protesting again, blah, 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 blah. They never come out. They see the Mauritanian once. The next day they've got the jumpsuit, they're out. You know, people need to see and read these books and see these films. So, and I think we as lecturers at universities, you know, are in a good space to actually get these actually on our reading lists. You know.
May I please just add to that? I think we need to be practical. You know, we need to do the thing that we can do today. I need Yusuf to stand up. Yusuf, could you stand up, please?
Oh, is he here?
This young man, young man is a British citizen. His father was in Guantanamo Bay. Ravil Mingazov was in Guantanamo Bay and was transferred to United Arab Emirates. He's still in prison. We can start with him because this is your citizen, and you can co-sign with him a letter, and those beautiful people could take it to the prime minister and bring his father home. You know, he never got to meet his father. He was 3 months old, I think. You were 3 months old when he was kidnapped, you know? And I just think we need to start, you know, with the thing that we can do now.
Well, I mean, I could certainly draft just a handwritten letter that people can sign and we could send off. And the other thing to say is, I was talking to Youssef, who was at the APPG meeting on Monday. You know, as far as I think we're concerned, we're going to have the case of his father on every agenda from now on that goes to Parliament, on every agenda of our weekly second 2 week. Your father is going to be on our agenda until he's released.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask something about him because Ravil was one of my closest friend, and he was one of the red eyes, let you know, the one who stood in the hardest moments at Guantanamo. He is a belly dancer. You know, at Guantanamo, I never heard about belly dancer. So some of the brothers said, "Hey, can you teach us how to dance?" They said, "Okay," and he would start teaching them. And it like looks. Imagine a man with the long beard. it didn't fit. So Saeed, he's in my wall. I always try to. With Cage, we're trying to organize a campaign for him. I contacted the prisoners who was with him in the United Arab Emirates, Saeed especially being targeted, harassed, and in solitary confinement. And they refused to let him to communicate with his son. No, they curse him. They always harass him. They want him to sign a paper that he won't go back to Russia. And the only hope, and he told the men there that the British government doesn't have any problem to take him. The only problem is the United Arab Emirates. So I can only imagine, because when I talk to the brothers who were in the United Arab Emirates jail, they said, Wallahi, Guantanamo is way better than the situation we're in the United Arab Emirates jail. I mean, I don't think anything more stronger that statement. I'm talking to the man who spent 5 years, and he has been there now for 6 years. No access to lawyers, no NGOs, no call with his son for the last 2 years.
So I think everyone's right. This is a focus that we need to take forward. It doesn't appear easy. No one thinks that it's easy dealing with the UAE, but Yusuf and his mother were granted asylum in this country. It's the answer to Ravi''s problem that the British government also accepts him, and we should push for that. And I know that you've met with your local MP who's also hopefully going to work on this, but it is a campaign that we can do here in the UK and that we can win. And we've got a long history of doing well when it comes to Guantanamo, as those of us who've been around long enough will remember in our struggles to get Shaka Amar out of Guantanamo, to get Binyam Mohammed out of Guantanamo, to get Omar Dagayas out of Guantanamo, to get Mozambique out. So yeah, and thank you for so forcefully putting that across, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to share with you something that I just received. I want you also to know that our former guards are also in pain, because it was also abusing to order a human being to torture a human being. And there is this German American journalist by the name of John Goetz. He made a movie called In Search for Monsters, and it was about my story. And he made me confront the people who abused me. And one of them, you remember the boat ride? When they kidnapped me in the boat, he actually made a painting about me, the man. Here, I can show you now. I just received it. Can you see?
Yeah. It may even be more than you can ask them.
This is not my original idea, by the way. And someone told me, because the harder thing that Mansoor and I can talk about is sexual assault. And I tell you why, at least in my case. When we think about sexual assault, when I was young, and I'm ashamed to say it, we think about women being assaulted. A man, come on, you cannot assault me. If you want to hit on me, be my guest. You know why I thought so? Because I was ignorant. I did not understand what sexual assault meant. It's about control. It's about humiliation. It's not about pleasure. And when I was sexually assaulted, that was the most horrific thing that happened to me. And one, Larry Sims tell me, this is abuse of the female service members. And he doesn't understand why they don't talk about it. Why they don't say, the military forced me, ordered me to assault someone. because you cannot do pain to someone without experiencing the same pain, at least yourself. I just want to tell you that I don't want really what I want to tell you, but to tell you that I'm very thankful for you guys. God bless you.
Hello, my name is Iris. Thanks for hosting us, Mansoor. Unfortunately, we can't meet you in person today. I hope very soon it's possible. I've got a question to you because you live now in Serbia. I assume that wasn't your dream destination. But I was really interested because I could speak to Mohamedou on Monday about your life after Guantanamo, which doesn't mean if you release from Guantanamo, you are free, because sometimes, I mean, the struggle continues, and I was wondering how life is in Serbia for you. How are you treated by the Serbian authorities? Is it possible to keep in touch with your loved ones, friends? How do you live right now in Serbia?
Oh, this is the question of work of 6 years here. This is life after Guantanamo project. See it? So I think the Serbian were lucky to have me, and I was lucky to come to Serbia anyway. You know, in general, life after Guantanamo, it's Guantanamo 2.0. Okay. In 2021, I graduated of my bachelor degree. Hey, congratulations to me. My thesis was about rehabilitation and reintegration of former Guantanamo detainees into social life and the labor market. I have been tracking anyone I can, like contacted them, asking about them live. I interviewed around 100 prisoners, 120 former prisoners, and different cases in different countries. There is cases where people integrate, I can't say fully integrate into society, but living in better conditions, because in short answer, there was no any kind of rehabilitation or integration program in any kind. People said, oh, Saudi Arabia, they have their own center. It's a transition facility between prison and coming back to society, is like washing the Saudi face about whatever they're doing there. So there was no rehabilitation, no integration, no therapy, nothing. In some cases, the worst cases, in Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Kazakhstan, where prisoners, some of them, I'm tracking now 3 cases in Saudi Arabia, some of them released in 2006, 7, 14. 2 of them actually have been sentenced to death, but because they refuse to admit to guilt, and they refuse to swear allegiance to the Saudi monarchy. And they haven't committed a crime. One of them actually had refused to shake hands with the crown prince in 2007, and he's sentenced to death. In Kazakhstan, as our sister Alisa Swain did a report about Sabri's case in The Intercept, it is a very good detailed report about his life there, which actually worse than Guantanamo. Some of the cases where prisoners died because no medical, no health care, no treatment. Lutfi bin Ali, Asim, Salim al-Gharibi, like died 2 months ago. Cases where prisoners were sent back to their countries against their will, where they faced torture and death eventually, like the Libyan who were sent to Senegal. They were deported back to Libya, 3 years in jail. They were tortured. One of them died 2 months ago. We are talking about prisoners who have no legal status. In Albania, Uyghurs and Egyptian were sent to Albania in 2007. Until that day, they have no legal status, no IDs. They're not allowed to travel. They're not allowed to work, nothing. The Egyptian guy died last year of COVID. The government evicted his wife and 3 children. As soon as he died, they used to give him like monthly support and paying the rent. After that, like nothing. So we had to intervene to raise some money to try to support the family and so on. In some cases, like UK, like Germany, Ireland, like Qatar, Oman, people there, or former Guantanamo prisoners, managed to integrate to society. You know, they have kids, wife, jobs. They moved on. They found a life that, and they want to forget. Nobody crazy like me and Mohamedou keep talking about, because we talk that an obligation, a duty, because you know, the last, wallahi, the last, I swear, Imam Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the last words from my brothers at Guantanamo, the last night, they told us, please don't forget us here. I said, I won't. And I hope I can keep that promise. So life after Guantanamo is the extension of Guantanamo. We live in the stigma, harassed, targeted. You know, when I come from Guantanamo, I am at that position because I went on hunger strike. The first time, 48 days. The second time, 25 days. I enrolled in the first university. I was expelled as soon as they knew I come from Guantanamo. Being known at Guantanamo, it's not easy. So every day now, I wear this t-shirt, Guantanamo, Gitmo, and like here behind, like, close Guantanamo. You know, we are going to use Guantanamo to close Guantanamo. We are going to use our Guantanamo to fight their Guantanamo, because it is the right way. Secondly, you know, in some cases, like Rafael Mingazo, the father of Yusuf, this is one of the cases where we're working for years, writing letters to State Department, ICRC, to the United Nations, and no result, simply because the United States government does not care. Simply, you know, what do you think, like, if they just talk to any government, to Oman, or they would take him more, they are more than happy to take him. You know, in my case, I was arrested a few times, harassed, threatened. I was evicted from my apartment. I never gave up. So, on the contrary, I'm wearing orange jumpsuit. I said, the more you try to abuse me, the more I do more. In a good way. I'm not trying to cause any trouble, but it is who I am. I'm not bragging here, but the more they oppress me, the more I get a little pushing back. So for us, we need to speak out about Guantanamo, about life after Guantanamo, and the closure of Guantanamo. And for me and for my brothers, closing Guantanamo is, there should be an official apology from the United States to the victim, acknowledgement, reparation, and accountability. We want to see General Jeffrey Miller brought before justice. We need those interrogators and officials who abused us and torture us. You know, 3 of the brothers died at Guantanamo, and there was no any kind of transparency about what happened to them. And I was talking to one of the fathers, well, Yasser's father. He said the government actually closed the case because it is a matter of national security. Here, this man was released 2 months ago. Today, I can show the text. I'm texting his lawyer in the United States. I get intervened with his, sorry. This is a text with his lawyer. I don't know if you can see it. Just today, we are tracking his case because the Algerian government, Saeed refused to admit to guilt. Secondly, the judge told him, you are going to strip of your civil rights. He said, send me back to Guantanamo. They shaved his head, his beard. They took the medicine the American gave him because Saeed has some like depression and he has some physical health problem. They deprived him of his medicine and they threw him to jail. So now we are working. Since I got involved in case, I contacted his lawyer, we contacted State Department. I contacted the UN rapporteur, and she met with the Algerian ambassador, and we get him a lawyer in Algeria. Now we're in the process to move his case to the capital and try to get him a hearing before the judge. But US government has done nothing to involve. And I'm sure if they just talk to the Algerian official, he will be released immediately, because 21 years in Guantanamo, 21 years. You know what the last accusation from the Algerian government? They said he has swore allegiance to Osama bin Laden. His lawyer, when I told her that, he said he wasn't even in Afghanistan. And that allegation against him, not even the US government said he swore. US government didn't accuse him with that one. New accusation, nothing. So we are talking about tyrants who abuse those victims. Again, you end up, he was in Guantanamo 21 years. Now we are trying to free him for the last 2 months in Algerian prison. So welcome to Guantanamo 2.0. And Yeah, I'm sure the Home Office will harass me when I get there, like they harass Muhammad. Please be nice to me, guys.
I will also say that that Mansoor is helping with a number of organizations in the United States who have set up what the Guantanamo Survivors Fund, where they raise money for the urgent needs of former prisoners. Absolutely filling a hole that is left by the United States government and the State Department, who do, it seems, pretty much wash their hands of everyone after they're released. So they're fundraising at the moment. So if you're interested, look up the Guantanamo Survivors Fund. It's an ongoing thing. And it's specifically about people's needs. So that might be that they need help with their housing, they need help with education, they need support, medical support, all kinds of things where they just simply don't have the money or the resources themselves. So yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andy. Yeah, I mean, most of the cases we have been trying to support, Andy, critical healthcare. You know, we talk about kidney failures. We have people who lost their sight. You know, Salim Al-Ghuraibi, who died 2 months ago because he died of medical, there was a lack of medical treatment. When we got him some support, he went to Turkey and they told him you have 4-stage cancer. It was too late. So now there is some cases in other countries where mostly we are talking about physical health care. You know, in some cases, people end up homeless, literally. In one of the cases I get involved in, one of the former Guantanamo detainees, he was homeless for 7 years until we managed to get involved and get him some kind of support.
Thank you, Mansoor. So,
Andy,
Scott, are you?
Is this on?
can you hear me?
Yeah.
So I think building on what Mansoor said, some pragmatic and practical things that we can do. Okay, is this better? When we were in Parliament the other day, her name is Afsana Begun. She is the MP in Poplar, and this is where Youssef lives. I think if Afsana received 39 or 40 letters asking her to put pressure on the UK government to help release your father. Youssef's father. That would work, right? So we apply pressure. Let's ask our MPs to do something. This is a lady that believes in the cause now, and we need to get momentum and help her help change happen. The other thing that we can do is go to andyworthington.co.uk. Sorry, it's a shameless plug, but Andy, you know, your mission, what you do this out of the kindness of your heart, and you rely on good people like us. If we all donated to your cause, to let you get your voice out there, to help Sarah to continue to march and make these things happen. If we could just all do something a little bit more. You know, Yasmin also asked the question when we first saw the screening, what can her generation do? And, you know, in addition to the real pragmatic things we can do is you guys can go back to your schools and you can, as Sarah said, let's screen the Mauritanian at our school. It's not easy, but get that done. I just think there's some things that goes back to the video that Handan showed tonight about, you know, making things happen. So anyway, thank you guys so much for everything you're doing for this company.
Thank you.
Can I just add to something that you've just said there? First of all, I think that's a brilliant idea for everyone to write to Afsana Begum. At the moment, I'm just drafting a letter to our Prime Minister and copying in Afsana Begum, which I want everyone here to physically sign tonight before they go, and we'll get that sent off. But in terms of getting involved with the work, I think also I'd like to absolutely, you know, Andy is just like doing so much work. You know, I have other jobs, basically. I try and fit this in between other jobs, but, you know, Andy is working full time on this. And, you know, he really is the person that, you know, is seen worldwide as keeping on top of what is happening with Guantanamo. So his work is really vital, and he's taken the unusual, you know, choice, if you like, to do it, from his own accord. But, I think he deserves to be, he deserves of people to support him. And I think that support should include financial support. So please have a look at, seriously, Andy, please have a look at Andy's website, because he's too modest to say anything. He'll send out a quarterly reminder, and I sometimes send a tenner, Andy. I know it's not much, but if people can bear that in mind, that would be amazing, because it is, it's a massive job that Andy's doing. The other thing to say is that with the UK Guantanamo network, we actually it started actually just outside here. It was myself, Hugh, Andy, and the Lisa Rossi, who is the UK Guantanamo, the UK country coordinator for North America. We had a meeting here just outside and said, what can we do to get this? We literally, 4 of us sat around a table just here and said, what can we do to raise this? It can't possibly get to 2020 and this place still be open. That's what we were thinking. We've got to close it by 2020. So we had all these ideas, and then COVID hit. But out of that came this network. We've closed Guantanamo with freedom from torture, lots of Amnesty International groups, the Guantanamo Justice Campaign. And what we've done together is we've supported the work of the Guantanamo Justice Campaign that set up the monthly vigils, and we're doing those monthly now. And we have members from different Amnesty groups. Do you mind if I just have a shout out to who the Amnesty groups are? Because we've got Hackney and Islington, haven't we? Is that right? We've got, who else? What other Amnesty groups we got here today? Kingston, Blackheath and Greenwich. Maybe that's it. I think Reading. Anyone else? Kent Network, Newcastle. So, basically we've got the activists in the country and we need to get them out campaigning. So I'm going to have a list here. If you want to join the UK Guantanamo Network's mailing list, please put yourself on that. But we also have Harry and Melissa with us, and they are young people, as you can see. Melissa's one of my students. Harry is her partner, and they're working on our social media, because we need young people to help us, obviously, with that sort of thing. But also they've set up with other students from my university and other students from different places, they've set up what's called the Guantanamo Activism Project, which Harry is coordinating. And that is part of the UK Guantanamo network that feeds into our meetings. And under Harry, we've got lots. Harry, do you want to say something? Because you've got a couple of ideas. Yes, do you want to stand up? Yeah, sorry to put you on the spot, but we've had various meetings about this. There's a few ideas of things.
So at the moment, there's not, it's very new. What we're doing currently is trying to spread the monthly vigils to places around the world. So they currently there are a few cities in the United States. I think Mexico City, Paris, Brussels are the only places and London are the only places that currently have monthly vigils in order to close Guantanamo Bay. So this project currently is literally just blanket emailing different activism groups focusing on amnesty around the world, in cities, across the world, just saying to them, please start monthly vigils. It's so simple, it's so basic. You need 7 people to stand outside an embassy, 2, 3, however many people. But there are ideas that we've thrown around for how we can start to do new things, think kind of almost guerrilla marketing for what we're trying to achieve. Things like David suggested, someone sitting during an MP's surgery, that's the word, sitting in an orange jumpsuit for the entirety of the surgery, in silence, just with a sign, so that everybody who comes in sees what's happening and sees that this still matters and this is still happening. So for anybody who's interested in doing something of this nature, something beyond the vigils, please talk to me or talk to Sarah, and you can get an email address and we can, get started and you can join what we're trying to do with this activism project.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna have a list here, and it's gonna have it says to join the mailing list of the UK Guantanamo Network, name and email address, and then if you want to join the sort of Guantanamo Action Project, then you can put an asterisk by your name. But we had a lot of interest from the students of Clive Stafford Smith were talking to us at the end, and they wanted to get involved in this project, and they were introduced to Harry as well. So, you know, that's definitely something you can get involved in.
And these global monthly vigils take place on the first Wednesday of every month. So the next one is next Wednesday. It's in Parliament Square. It's from 1 till 3 o'clock, and everyone is welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think that's it for this evening. Oh, it's not.
To Amnesty and to Jean-Marie, you really have done us big to give us this opportunity to, you know, have this space in such a short notice. So really, thank you. And thank you all of you for coming and giving us your time, and Eid Mubarak.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. روح مع السلامة الله يزيدك أمن وسلامة روح مع السلامة الله يزيدك أمن وسلامة. Mohammed, can you please explain this to the people? When the last time you heard it?
One more time.
روح مع السلامة الله يزيدك أمن وسلامة.
You already did more than enough for me and you. Thank you.
This is the song when someone leave the blocks, the camp, or leave Guantanamo. Brothers will sing this for him. So I'm going to sing it, but I'm going to see you again, guys, soon. Then you will sing for me, okay?
Okay. Thank you, Mansoor.
Thank you, Mansoor. We are looking forward.
Okay.
Mansoor, we're looking forward to seeing you so soon.
Inshallah.
As soon as you're going to come over and we're going to do things, yeah? We're looking forward to it, I'm sure. So don't forget to come and do some signatures up here, please. All right? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.